So, we're going to listen to a short rant today of someone trying to outline what the right wing strategy in New Zealand is, despite having absolutely no idea what the right wing strategy is. Because I don't even know if the right themselves know what the right wing strategy is right now, and I'm not sure National is capable of a right wing strategy because they're not right wing.
The right-wing parties do not like public services. For the most part, they favour privatisation, with New Zealand First being something of an exception. Their strategy is to sabotage public services by failing to fund them properly. Then, when those services perform poorly, it becomes an excuse for privatisation. And people tolerate the privatisation because the public services were failing. This is how they push privatisation. They neglect valuable public services so they can privatise them more easily in the future. The school lunches program is a great example of this. It is well known that the political right hates the school lunch program. They wanted to abolish it. They knew abolishing it would be unpopular, so instead they seriously underfunded it. The result was horrendous lunches that nobody wanted to eat. This means they can more easily abolish the policy when they decide to do so. People who want the government to fail should not be trusted to govern. People who deliberately sabotage government programs should not be trusted to govern. People who abuse taxpayer funding in such a way should not be trusted to govern. The coalition should be voted out of government in 2026.
So, the argument here is that the right wing strategy in this country is to fail to adequately fund our government departments, systems, and so on, so that they perform so poorly, people will support a move to privatization. Or maybe, just hear me out, maybe they're refusing to fund what isn't working because they've already seen that throwing more money at it isn't delivering better results. And so rather than throwing money at something that isn't working, like, wasting money, they are deciding we're going to take a different approach. We are going to pull back the amount of money that we're investing, even though in practice they're not really doing that. But we're going to stop spending as much money on certain things while still increasing money in other areas to ensure that we're getting more bang for our buck, that we're not wasting millions and millions and millions and millions every year on bureaucrats who in practice aren't achieving anything of value. That we aren't wasting money on school lunches when the parents should be feeding their children. I'm sorry, someone's got to say it. The parents should be feeding their children. With how generous our welfare state is, you've got no excuse for not feeding your children. Okay? And so if the government is trying to actually dismantle this by making it so bad everyone just begs them to stop, then frankly, I'm all for that. That's also not what they're doing, though. The National are very much in support of this policy because they think it makes them look good. They think, oh yeah, we're going to have the best of both worlds. We're going to uphold this policy. We're also going to try and make it cheaper so that people are going to doubly love us. National ideologically support the school lunches. Let's not pretend that they don't. ACT don't support it, but they're taking point on it because who better to manage how much money's going into it than the people that don't want to spend any money on it? It's the best compromise that ACT could get out of it. NZ First, I just don't think they care either way, to be honest. That's why they've said very little on it. I don't think they care either way. But ultimately, is their strategy to sabotage our government departments? No. Do I wish it was? Abso-bloody-lutely. Absolutely, I wish it was. Because our government departments are not fit for purpose. They aren't delivering what they need to deliver. They are bloated, and they are failing to actually provide the people what they need, and they're focusing on a bunch of stuff that we don't care about. Some of the most notable changes and improvements under the previous Labour government in our government departments was lovely name changes. we're going to make everything more bilingual. We're going to be more accepting of people. It's like, okay, nice. You're going to be more accepting of people. Is that going to get me better outcomes? No. What about the $2 billion into mental health? What did that do? Absolutely nothing. Throwing money at something doesn't mean it improves. It just means that you're spending money. Spending money that, by the way, we don't actually have. Now, we can argue till the cows come home about whether or not being in debt is good, bad, or not really a problem in the long term. I don't care. At the end of the day, if you're wasting money, you're wasting money. You shouldn't be wasting money. It's in our best interest that we don't waste money, don't you think? I think that the government should reflect what you want from the citizens. If you want the people of the nation to look after their money, to make smart investments, then you as the government should do the exact same thing. But what is the actual right-wing strategy? Well, it really depends. It depends who you ask, because the right isn't this one-size-fits-all view of the world, just as the left isn't. Though the left is increasingly so, which is somewhat concerning. But what does the right actually believe? The right believes in getting rid of unnecessary regulation, right? Ensuring that workers aren't being exploited, but at the same time, that the workers aren't taking the capitalists for a ride. Because that's very much what the left believe in. They believe that the capitalists, the people providing the capital to enable these industries which are employing people to exist, should be demonized and have their money taken off of them because the workers are doing all the work. The workers are only doing all the work because they're provided the means of actually doing the work. They have a job, they have an income, they have the house over their head or whatever because they are being provided an income. I think the general person on the right acknowledges the need to ensure that workers aren't being exploited, whilst also acknowledging the importance for business owners to have the confidence to grow, have the confidence to innovate. Because without that, everything stands still. Suddenly the economy slows down. The growth and the quality of life slows down. You know, for all of the criticisms of capitalism, isn't it funny that the working class who are supposedly being exploited have improved their quality of life dramatically since the early 1900s, relative to all of the nations which said down with the bourgeoisie in the early 1900s? What's the state of Eastern Europe versus the US versus the UK? What was the quality of life for the working class man in 1960s Soviet Russia versus the working man in 1960s USA? Because the 1960s USA guy was supposedly oppressed by the bourgeoisie, right? So they were being exploited. They were far better off than the working class in the Soviet Union, despite the fact that the Soviet Union was created out of a revolution which overthrew the people that were supposedly exploiting the working class. These are answers. These are questions that need to be asked. Why is that the outcome here? Those providing capital making a profit does not mean that the workers are automatically being exploited. It simply means that they are ensuring that they can continue to grow, that they can continue to innovate, that they can continue to employ more people, that they can continue to expand their enterprise, to continue growing the economy, to continue providing value to our society, be that through jobs, be that through produce, be that through what they are providing us, right? That's their purpose. What the left believes in and what this gentleman believes in is that that is wrong. That the government should take control of most things, if not everything. That the government should heavily regulate businesses so that the lower class, the working class, whatever, get far more benefit from the production that is created in this country. That the capitalists, the investors, all of the people making profits off smart decisions should be punished so that those who are working are better off. All it is the same principles of Marxism and Leninism applied in a different way, in a way that's a little bit more palatable to the Western world. In practice, it eventually leads to the same thing. So I go back to that question again. What is the right-wing strategy? Well, the right-wing strategy is to prevent that from happening. The right-wing strategy is to ensure that we continue to grow as a nation, that our economy continues to grow, that our quality of life continues to grow with it. Because it has. That's an undeniable fact. The quality of life of people in the Western world under the so-called capitalist, oppressive capitalist society has only grown. Now, does that mean that there isn't any exploitation? Does that mean that everyone out there is there to benefit us and treat us nicely and make sure that we're all happy? No, of course not. There are people there. There are people in very high places that are actively looking to exploit their positions to benefit themselves at the expense of others. However, there are a million and one ways to go about dealing with that. Socialism, opposition to privatization, the belief in centralization, the belief in heavy regulation is not it.